What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Wednesday. Giant slate to get to, a lot of stuff. Want to say what's up to everybody in chat. Fred says he's playing. He took everything Sheet says as gospel on Poker X Factor, and he's going to do it tonight, even on this slate, even though Sheet says not to. All right, awesome. I love it. Sheets when he says that, and he just like throws out a slate like he can't compete on. He always ends up like somehow weirdly like getting there in one of the long shot tournaments. He's like, oh, I never can win those things. I never can win on this kind of slate, and then he ends up winning it. So I don't blame you. And what's up, K9 Bronco? Always good to see you, man. I'm going to just start off like we always do. And I want you guys to filter and funnel in all with questions. We do have Mark here today, which is awesome. I think that Mark, we can get the injury report up, but I don't think it's like, I don't like what other shows do when they go through all the guys who are out in every single thing. We're going to talk about the guys we're playing because those guys are out already anyway. It gets a little too confusing if I'm just looking at, if I'm just telling everybody the injury report, but I'd love to show the injury report.
Yeah, good evening, Bobby. No problem.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Appreciate it. You guys, and Mark, if there's anything you want to drop in about the site for 1 second or anything like that, we do have live. We've got a SaberSim on our site now, and it's great. It's a great offering, and we really are thrilled with everything Mark's been doing to the site and cleaning everything up and getting everything together. So before we launch into this stuff, Mark, is there anything you want to throw out there?
No, I mean, we're going to keep all the general announcements in the Discord for now. So if you go to that announcements tab, you'll see all the new things that are getting added. If you have questions, definitely post them there. We'll try to get together an FAQ for all the frequently asked questions that people have. But generally speaking, we've got 3 offerings now. We've got our core offering, just true DFS, the same thing you've always known and loved. You can also add SaberSim. SaberSim offers 2 products on their own website. They offer a starter plan, which basically the primary limit on their starter versus their advanced plan is just the number of lineups you can craft at one time. So if you're not doing mass multi-entry, if you're not doing the 150s, the starter plan with SaberSim gets you 20 lineups, and you can enter all the GPPs up to 20 entries, and you can obviously run multiple projections. If you're going to be looking to do massive amounts of lineups, and you're going to want their advanced plan, their pro plan, we're offering each of those things. Our core plan is $39.99. We're offering our plan plus SaberSim for $64.99, which is a savings of money for individuals over buying those 2 things separately. And then we're offering for $99.99, you can get the SaberSim advanced plan plus True DFS. You'll get our projections baked into the tool over time. We're not quite there yet with that, but they'll be loaded up. You can use our projections, you can use SaberSim's, and then you'll have Bobby's core plays and any of the other pros that put up their core plays. You can go in, you can see those players that they want. You don't have to go find other content on our website. So I think it's a great offering. Obviously, we want some people to pick it up so we can kind of make sure we've worked out all the kinks in the shopping experience. But that is one question we've gotten early, which is, so I have a SaberSim subscription or I have a True DFS subscription. How does that work on the upgrade? So the upgrade path is built into the product. So if you buy the upgrade, let's say you're halfway into your monthly subscription, right? You've spent 15 days of the month on our True DFS plan. Now you want to upgrade. We'll prorate the remainder of your current subscription. So you're not going to get charged the full amount. You're going to get prorated through the end of your current term for whatever the difference is. And then it'll pick up at the $64.99 or $99.99 price at your renewal date. You won't have 2 subscriptions. It'll consolidate all that into one new subscription at the new price.
Yep, absolutely. And again, Mark, appreciate everything and appreciate you dropping.
Yeah, and if we have time at the end of the stream, Bobby, when you're done with all the important news stuff, and when Sheets finishes up, if anybody wants to stick around, I'll go through just some of the upgrade paths, how those things play out on the website, where you can do it, how you can do it, and show them some of the SaberSim stuff. But let's make sure we get into all the stuff because it's a big slate tonight. And I don't know who the hell I'm playing yet.
Yeah, and hey, you nearly took down a little tournament last night.
I had a 2nd place and a 10th place and 2 small buy-ins. I covered my buy-ins and made a little profit. So never bad when you do that. Well,
let's get it. Let's get it again tonight. All right, so I'm going to jump over to it. Eric, I don't believe will be joining us today because he's in the city. But I'm going to jump through what I see as the priorities on this slate. I think the best thing with big slates is you want to try to make them smaller. There are too many other options usually that you'd want to talk about playing and all this stuff. You want to try to make this slate smaller, and they've given us a lot of opportunities to do it. The problem is it's hard to make it smaller when we have all of this value and some value we coming up later that we don't know who's starting for some teams. We don't know who's going to be starting for the Knicks, or we don't know who's going to be starting for the Lakers. And the Knicks are the first game, luckily, but it's just an interesting slate overall. So the priorities for me, as I have as the top guys, are Brunson, Dinwiddie, Toppin, one of Damian Jones or Metu. I don't need to marry myself to that because Alex Len minutes always scare me, and you never know when you're going to get that weird Alex Len start. So I'm curious to see what Sacramento's starting lineup is tonight. The other guys, then you have the other guys from Sacramento, the Davion Mitchells. The Davion Mitchell would be my priority as the next guy. You do have an insane amount of like revenge narratives in this game. Probably be better if it was in Sacramento to take the Halliburton to answer what's going on in chat already. I like Halliburton a lot. I prefer him on FanDuel to DraftKings, and that's pretty obvious with the price gap. And there's a lot of great guards that I really like, but I really do like Halliburton. I like Buddy Hield on another little revengey type of thing. Anyway, but that whole game is a great game. It's just easier to stack on FanDuel. But I think you don't need to have two Sacramento pieces like you did earlier because there's so many other pieces of news we've got. But I think you want to get at least one of those guys in. Mitchell would be my favorite guy, but I do think you're going to want some exposure to Metu, who's going to be very low owned but has upside, and we've seen it before, and Damian Jones if he does start. Again, just depends on the starting lineup there. But priorities: Brunson, Dinwiddie, Toppin, Damian Jones, or Metu possibly. Kuminga. Let's see what happens who starts for the Knicks before we say anything about. I don't know. I can't do Tajon, I don't think, on a back-to-back, but I might play Jericho Sims if they start he and Toppin together. I don't think they're going to do that, though. Something tells me. Embiid, my favorite spend-ups in order are Embiid, Booker because the ownership, but I do like SGA better than Booker in a vacuum. And then Barrett is not a spend all the way up, but he's a guy you're going to probably want in a good portion of your lineups because, I mean, with those guys missing, he could just go completely nuts tonight. I do worry about the Knicks staying in the game a little bit. Tough to play a back-to-back, especially against a team that plays at Charlotte's pace. But I do think at 7,900 on both sides, he's like where you would start a cash game. So you want to focus in on these Knicks and Kings, and we would like to see a Knicks starting lineup because I think the common consensus is that we're going to see what's his name starting. Taj Gibson. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. So let's just keep an eye on that one because that's a lot that they're missing. That's an entire front line that they're missing, and they don't, other than Barrett, have a guy who's going to eat up a ton of usage until quickly gets in the game. Everybody on that whole side is completely playable for tournaments. The only thing about playing the Sims is just a little bit nerve-wracking to me even if he starts, just because you don't need to play big against Charlotte, and we all know that. So you can get away with using a small at the 5. That's the only thing that worries me. So we'll see when the lineups come out. I'm going to be here till probably 3:15 or so, 6:15 Eastern time. And I'm going to talk to you guys about what you like. Other guys who I'm considering, by the way, who I didn't mention, I did say Mitchell, Harden and Westbrook. Say whatever you will. I do think it's a good spot for them. And I also think other guys you should mix into your tournaments. This could be a spot where you get a big game out of Malik Monk. I actually think Taylor Horton-Tucker is like one of the sneakiest plays, probably too big of a slate to do it. But that's a guy who, when LeBron is out, can put up a big game. And I also worry a little bit about blowout possibilities, which, again, goes to Taylor Horton-Tucker gets the run. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get into it. I'm gonna go into some of the questions. Do I prefer Shea over DeJounte? I do. I think they're both good plays, but I have Shea rated ahead of DeJounte, assuming that Shea plays. We always have that Q tag just looking at us, wondering whether he's going to play. When he plays, he freaking plays. Any Halliburton news? I as of right now, I'm planning as if Halliburton's in, and I like him a lot, as we talked about more on FanDuel, of a play for me. Jordan Poole interest. So I think Jordan Poole is a good tournament play. If we had this on other slates, I would be like, we have to take a lot of Jordan Poole shots. I'm just not getting there much in my tournaments with the way that I'm building because I prefer those other spend ups. But I don't mind the idea of it. And with Golden State, I mean, first of all, I worry about them hanging in the game. But they're pretty deep in general. They're going to play they don't have that many guys who are going to project for crazy minutes except for Jordan Poole. And Jordan Poole can always shoot his way into 50 fantasy points. So I think that's fine. I just don't think that it's what I'm doing. So let me just make sure that and ask about site specific, please, guys, because some of the prices are different on different sites today, and it's a lot easier to get players in on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. But Kuminga is the guy who I'm siding with in that game, and even that makes me a little nervous because you never know if it might be the Gary Payton the second night or whatever, and then you might get the weird Damian Lee hot shooting. We don't even know who's starting for them. There's just a whole lot to mess through. They do have a lot of bodies. So Sacramento does too, but Sacramento is losing all of their usage. At least with Golden State, you're going to get some usage out of Wiggins. You're going to get some usage out of Poole. You're going to get some usage actually out of Kuminga, and you're going to get some usage out of Moody. We don't have that for some of these other situations, though. I'm a little lower on the Golden State side of hey, these guys are out, let's play these guys. I'm more on the Knicks. I'm more on I'm starting to wonder about the Lakers. I didn't mention Wenyen Gabriel and Dwight Howard. I think Dwight Howard is like the sneakiest tournament play. No one's going to play him. Your former teammate, all this stuff, need the size. Like the Lakers don't have like Wenyen Gabriel. You're going to put Wenyen Gabriel on Embiid, or are you just going to like, how is that going to work? Like, I just think there's an argument to be made for Dwight Howard, assuming that he starts tonight, and we're not going to know that till way later. But it does seem logical that he will. And I think while he's been playing 16, 18 minutes, there's no cap on this. Like might get the weird 28-minute game and he could put up like 40 fantasy points, even against Embiid, because he is a monster rebounder. And we see him have these spurts where he has like 20 fantasy points in like 2 minutes of play. I mean, it happens with him. He's my really sneaky one, but I almost don't feel like it's necessary because there's so many other good values that am I just overreaching because I like how cool a play it would be. That's, a little what we used to call in poker, FPS, fancy play syndrome. I'm a little worried about that with my Howard thing. Otherwise, I would name him with those guys. But that's more for a 150 max kind of a tournament, not a small single entry, not a small high volume, small field. LaMelo Ball has never crossed my mind once today. Let me see if he should. I don't believe that I think LaMelo Ball, like I'm just going to point this out. He's gotten there once in 30 games, basically 20 game, not 30, but that's close, like 20. Basically, since the All-Star break, he's had 150 fantasy point game. And we have great guards. So LaMelo, and it's a bad matchup. Everything about it is LaMelo Ball, look, he always has upside because we know what he can actually do. But I don't know how much upside he really – I don't know if we should be, like, playing him over these other guys like Devin Booker and SGA and Joel Embiid and even James Harden to some extent. It's only 1,000 more. I'm not on LaMelo Ball at all. So that's my answer, I guess, on that one. Looney, any good tonight? I have no interest in Looney. I understand it, but I don't see why we would make that play with the other value we have out there. Like, what's going to happen with these and why it always makes me nervous is I'm going to be wrong because all these guys make some sense. I'm going to be wrong sometimes. But are you really taking the best odds of getting the guys with the upside? And Kevin Looney on this kind of with all this other value, it's just like we need a freakish game out of him in a terrible matchup. Like I just don't make those kind of plays. You know what I mean? And 3-game slates, 4-game slates, yeah, then we can talk about those kind of plays. I don't think you could even consider it on these slates with the way we've got so much value out here. Not news a narrative day. It's Kyrie's birthday. You know what? So I think that's a narrative that matters. I think Kyrie is actually a guy we should know that narratives matter a little bit. I mean, the other night when he scored 60, he was unbelievable, obviously. But to have him playing the fourth quarter when they're up, 40, I think it was, like, I don't know, just like he wanted to get his 60, so he stayed out there, and they seem to just let him do it. Like Durant will just let him go wild. I don't know. He's got a weird effect on people. They just let him do his thing. So I do think Kyrie is a sneaky, but definitely like a low owned play that you could take shots on. I just prefer the other guys over Kyrie, but I do think that, that's a valid thing to think about. You think that they have a nice bounce back game after Draymond's comments last night? I don't have that take at all. I don't know how they're going to have having a nice game and Draymond say something. Like they're sitting there. Draymond's not playing. Neither is Clay. Neither is Steph. Sure, they could. We've seen their bench rally and win games before, but I have no interest in just betting on this. Like, if it does stay close, like who are you playing that you feel great about outside of Poole, who probably keeps it close, or Kuminga? Those are my guys. Maybe Moody. I think you can make a better argument for Moody than any of the other ones, actually, except for Kuminga. Getting to any value on Memphis on FanDuel? If so, who? Tyus Jones. If I didn't mention Tyus Jones, that is my bad. He is another one of these value guys that we assume he'll start. The only thing that ever makes you worry about Tyus Jones is, first of all, he almost always comes through in these situations. Like, we've seen it before. He's usually great to us. There is a lot of guys on the bench who play the same position, and the usage, well, he's usually fine in this spot. You've got Bane, you've got Brooks back now, so you got another usage guy out there. You've got DeAnthony Melton off the bench. You've got Kyle Anderson back now. These are all guys who handle the ball. You're going to get some minutes from Zaire Williams. So it just worries me from that perspective that maybe he only sees like 28 or something minutes. And maybe he's not quite as productive in those minutes because there are other guys who have usage on their team. So that's pretty much the only guy for me. I do think Desmond Bane is in play, but I just can't seem to find a lineup where I need to play him yet. But I think he's a I think he's got a really good chance to go over 40 and get close. And, if he has an upside game, get to 50. I think I could see that happening. Yeah, so that's where I am on that one. QQ favorite center on FanDuel. Let me grab my list. And I appreciate when people say it exactly. That's the way a question should be answered. I asked right there. QQ on FanDuel center. That's a very specific, and I'll jump right into it. I think that the obvious one is Embiid. If you wanted to go low, I think that I don't understand the projection of Metu being a non-existent. It depends. So if Sims starts for the Knicks, I think you could make that argument to go low on him. Mo Bamba is 4,500. Yes, hold on.
Mo Bamba. The projections up on screen, Bobby, too. If that Embiid's obviously a green sheet special, which means he's probably unfadable over 200 sheets value score, right? For FanDuel. Podol, Towns, Gobert, Jones, or just some of the other.
Those are who he's got. Yeah, I agree with some of that. I don't think that I would be. I think it'll be Embiid. I did like Podol to start the day, but when all this other stuff opened up, I kind of got a little bit off it. But
and remember, Sheets' projections haven't been updated since 12:30, so there is a little bit of dating in there.
Yeah, and then there's other guys who I don't mind like the Podol, like Drew Eubanks to some extent. I will make my own crazy Dwight Howard play if I'm in a lineup or two, just because I think that there is a chance that happens. But I'm trying to figure out why. Let me just do a quick search on this one and see what's up with Metu's minutes. They keep cutting his minutes down. I don't know if that's accurate. Like, I think there's a chance he plays a lot more minutes here than they're imagining. He's projected to play the same amount of minutes he does when Sabonis is in. I think it's fair enough to think, well, maybe we get a bump out of him rather than those minutes just divide up to Damian Jones and Alex Len. I just think that we can take a shot there. So he and Dwight Howard are my get weird cheapos, but I do think Embiid is a very difficult fade. I mean, there's ways to fade him, but it's just to me, the idea would be to get to a different price tier completely. Obviously, everybody's in a different price tier, but I don't think I'm going mid-tier as much. I think that I would just like to stick with Embiid or taking the weird hope for that weird Mo Bamba game, because they're going to happen. You're going to see, and this is the kind of team it could happen against. He's 4,500. It's just kind of like, okay, at some point, we got to take some notice of that. But yeah, it's the projections don't love people as much as, or like people quite as much as maybe I do. But I think the first way to answer it is start with, like, my guys are going to be Embiid for the most part. And then I want to see who's starting for the Knicks before I make my final decision. Because I do think that the minimum cost Jericho Sims, if he does somehow start, could be kind of interesting. All right, some other questions. Powell can always, he can have that weird monster game a few times a year, and he's getting better. I don't see any, I don't see it as being like a strong play on this kind of a slate. But if you're just going to randomly play Dwight Powell, I would prefer not to do it on a big slate. He certainly doesn't get a boost without Luka. People who think he might are wrong. But gets a little bit more of the offense. I don't know. It's fine. He's going to have some ownership. I probably won't be one of the people on him. I'm just not into it myself. But I can't promise I won't have one piece of it or somewhere, but I just don't think it's going to happen. With LeBron out, do we just stay away from that game? No. Well, there's always some concern, but they've been it's not like they haven't been competitive in a lot of these games in the past. They are at home. Philly is an all over the place team. Sometimes they look, who knows what you're going to get from them every night. So I personally will be playing some Westbrook. I personally will be playing some Monk, and I will throw in the long shot plays of Dwight Howard and Taylor Horton-Tucker as my level of interest. I'm not going to get to Carmelo on this big of a slate, but he is another one that would normally show up for me. Bam Adebayo or Wood? I mean, I don't know. It's a question I never thought of today. To be honest, Christian Wood can always put up a monster game, but in a pretty bad matchup, I'm not really interested in Christian Wood. You have a pretty good matchup for Bam. He's a reasonable price, so I would say Bam is a little bit of the better play, but I'm not playing either of those guys as of right now. All right, let's see what we got. Yeah, see, if Rody says he likes the Nets Memphis stack, man, if you can find a way to get that one to work, I think that you can bring something home. I just think that there's two expensive guys, and trying to find the right one is one part of it, and then them not dividing up the scoring, that's another part of it. And then you need to find the Memphis run backs, which Tyus is the obvious one, but I think trying to get another guy is, do you play Tyus with Bane? Don't they, somewhat eat into each other? It's an interesting thing to think about because it's such a big slate with so many good plays that I don't think that you need to like game stack tonight. I am usually a fan of trying to mini stack in general, but this is not a night where I'm going out of my way to try and game stack. I am more team stacking and then maybe running one run back or something. On FanDuel, it's much easier to game stack, so I would say that. Any Drummond interest, I don't see any reason why to play him. Like, it's just, if you believe in playing Andre Drummond every night, just play Andre Drummond every night and don't even look at what's happening. Bad matchup, pretty clear that he's not getting the minutes. Tons of other options on this slate. He's a no-go for me and not even a guy I would consider, but you always could get a random game. It's just, if you're doing that, then you should be playing him every single night. There's no reason to try to play him, especially tonight. It's not like those Goran Dragic and Seth Curry are affecting him much.
Hey, Bobby, let me ask a question, because we get these types of questions a lot about players that you're clearly in disagreement or don't understand sort of the overall core lineup build. How are people coming to some of these? Maybe they could start putting that into the chat in the future, right? Like, is this the guy that you're coming to simply because you're trying to find a very, very low ownership? Your optimizer's grabbing Andre Drummond because he's 3.75% ownership. And so your counter to that would just be, there's probably somebody who else is also in single digit ownership who probably has a better minute projection or a better game matchup. Is that where kind of like, how do we help people in that space?
I just so my whole thing from when I worked at RotoGrinders, I just am brutally, completely honest about what I think about a player.
No, absolutely.
The crap if I'm wrong, but I would like to understand where it's coming from in general. When people are saying last piece or like the problem I run into with it is that I don't have an idea for the way the rest of their thing is building to lead them that direction. But I understand that like those are two, Christian Wood and Bam are legitimately could have big games tonight. There's nothing special about trying to pick them out tonight for me.
Sure. No, I get that.
I'm keeping my core tight. So I'm not saying that you can't play them. I'm saying I wouldn't play them because I like
right. No, I took it as such. I was just trying to figure out because I run into this too, right? I'm new to optimizers. I'm new to some of the stuff. Sometimes I run a stack and I get an Andre Drummond and I'm like, why am I getting him? I don't see anything, and I don't know enough about basketball as you do, except I go look and I go, it's got to be the ownership. It's got to be because he's under 5% ownership and they're trying to find me that contrarian play to get me to be different than the field. So when people are getting that on their optimizer, it might just be that there's a better low ownership play that you would play instead, right?
And I honestly don't necessarily think that they are getting it from the optimizer. I think
that's fair.
But you see some players out from Brooklyn, but I don't know. It could be different each time.
That's fair. All right, more discussion to follow. Just trying to keep it interesting.
Yeah. So Nick says, gotcha. He doesn't use optimizers, just play for the love of the game and hopefully catch a few bucks here and there. And it's great content. Hey, I appreciate that, Nick. Really nice of you to say. I appreciate that a lot, man. Let's see. It was price based, and no, I definitely appreciate the honesty. Okay, cool.
Right. I want to jump back to this. Did you get on this Trae, Kyrie, or Tatum on DK?
I haven't seen that one, but I'm really quickly going to answer the Booker thing first from Sharp. Cool. I'll get that because Booker. Yes, I do still like Booker as a spend up. I think that it's a loaded slate, and there's like where I'm playing Shea, I'm playing him in the same build because it's not that I want to choose one over the other. I like Shea plenty. But I think that Booker and Shea together, I think you could be looking at 60 plus from each of them tonight. So I'm definitely going to play some of that. And I really like, I think Booker, like real life scoring, I should have put that as some of my bets. But I didn't let it come to me till just now. I think that's like the easiest bet of the day, just to take the Booker over points tonight. I think he's going to go wild. I really do. But there's just a lot of other good plays. So, okay. So, Sam, sorry, buddy, for the delay in the question. Trae, Kyrie, or Tatum on DK tonight? For me, the answer is none. I think you could make a case for every one of them. For me, the answer is none. And if it had to be any of them, definitely not Tatum. Probably Kyrie, I guess, or Trae. No, Trae's a better. I don't know.
We do always love some Trae on this show. That's
other people. Yeah, I like Trae, but I like him as a fantasy player. But I also think that I think we've been overhyping him a little bit. Like if you look at his actual results compared to his price tag, compared to some of the other guys who are compared to their price tag, I loved the New York thing yesterday. Like that's a real thing to me. You know what I mean? That's a him. He does try to take on like the crowd. I want to play a guy playing like that. Who's playing like playoff atmosphere to him, but I don't see on a back-to-back in Detroit. It's a good matchup against a bad defense on a back-to-back for a jump shooter and travel. It doesn't seem like the optimum time to play him for me.
Right. At over 10,000, he's projecting to under 5 per right. Like
right. He's under 5x. Yeah.
So
with
it's
other guys who are going to go nuts. Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough spot to fit in your lineup.
Right. And I think that, DeJounte Murray you could throw as one of those other guys who just all of these guys are fine plays in a vacuum, but we have all this stuff going on tonight. And how are you going to get your middling guys like Brunson and Dinwiddie in? You want to get some exposure to Barrett. I want Embiid, Booker, SGA. Like I can't quite bring myself to go all the way towards these guys. I do think like they're in play. Bam is a guy who you should consider if you're entering 150. But you're just betting on the fact that, hey, 1 out of 10 times here, Bam's going to have the higher scoring thing of anybody in the 75 to 9K range in the center position. That's a good enough reason, but it's not a reason good enough for me on this slate where I'm looking for really good excuses to play certain guys because I like too many players, not too few.
Peeking over at that injury report, obviously we knew Ja was out already. Did we know Jalen Smith was out also? Was that news?
That was news, but let me just double check my earlier projection of what
SaberSim had him with points but no ownership, so they were obviously in the process of updating their projection. I don't know how recent that happened.
Yeah, that you can make an argument for Isaiah Jackson, Batatse as a run back, maybe Brissett, maybe. I don't think that'd be a little thin. I don't know. It feels a little thin to try to jump on it on this slate, but those guys do all have their own upside. Isaiah Jackson might be kind of interesting. I think he's got a ceiling, but the problem is they play Batatse minute. It's just they sort of rotate the minutes around even without Jalen Smith. A little too much for me. Favorite run back for Booker. Let's get to that real quick. So I think the answer is none. I don't think everything needs a run back, but I'm just trying to think of who I would play here. Let me just grab my sheet. I mean, like all of those guys fit the same exact criteria of everything else I said. They've got a bad matchup for them. They play at a fast pace, so the game will have some pace to it. I don't think you need to find a run back. You're getting different enough with I think Patrick Beverley is a reasonable play. And that's the argument maybe against Booker for some people. I don't think it's an argument. I do really like Booker in this game. Again, it's just the only question is, does he outperform the other guys? I feel really good about 50-ish fantasy points, but that may not even be enough on this slate. So I bet Booker's a guy who I'm using because he's low owned too. He is my guy. He's my version of these other plays that other people are bringing up, the Kyries and the this and the that's. I would rather play a guy with meaning, and I do that a lot. I'll play the guy like Chris Paul is still out. There's been some weird even blowout games, and he's still getting there, and we haven't even seen a ceiling game in a great environment yet. So I'm just waiting for that 70 fantasy point game to drop. All right. Let's see. But Eubanks would definitely be better on FanDuel than Drummond. So I understand a lot. Yeah. So the Eubanks, but the thing is, Drummond has probably higher upside than Eubanks does. But Eubanks his minutes are secure, and he's got pretty high upside too. So it's actually interesting. I don't really like either of them that much, to be honest with you. I did have Eubanks in my original build, but I took it out when I changed it with LeBron being out. Let's see, Eubanks. So guys, I love all the questions, and I love if we start the show when people say, "I just got here. What are we doing on this today?" It's really hard because then for everybody else who's been listening to the show, I end up just repeating myself.
I think the best thing when you come in late, and again, we're going to put this out somewhere in an FAQ, but if you come in and you have specific player questions, the best thing to do is that question from earlier is the model citizen, right? QQ, quick question, this player on this site, potentially even an alternative who you're considering in the same price range. So Bobby can really give you a projection. If you give us a 3,000 owned center and a 10,000 owned center, we don't really know what your lineup construct. They're not on the same playing field, right? We have no idea what you're trying to do. So if you're looking at two value guys, just tell us the two guys in the site you're looking at, and Bobby will give you his opinion.
Yeah,
that's I think the best we can do on a quick show.
Yeah, and I'm also happy to sometimes when we have not an 11 game slate, maybe launch a little bit more into it and talk about some general theories or repeat. I just think the repeating thing ends up getting frustrating sometimes for the other people. And I've been doing this long enough. Even when I was at RG, it was always a huge issue. So I said my core guys. I've got my core guys listed. If you guys are members from on SaberSim from
right.
2DFS, so see my core plays every day. Anyway, thanks a lot, Nick. Appreciate the kind words. Cade Cunningham on DK. I think that's an interesting large field play. I can get behind, the idea of it. Again, it's a little bit of the slate where I don't feel like I'm finding him, but that's how everyone else is going to feel too. I think he's fine. I have him as a completely okay play that I am probably not going to be playing much of.
Yeah, if it helps at all, because we don't have Sheets here, and I'm playing a little bit more like the optimizer style that he does, not nearly at the level he does, because no one can. But I'm coming up with a little bit of Cade in some DK lineups because he's 4.77 value, he's 15% ownership, and he's a pivot off of some other plays that might be higher owned, and he has a little bit of upside, right? So that's kind of where he fits. He's not 100% exposure, but I've got 10% of them in a couple lineups.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think that he makes it just there's a lot of guys like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Today. Like
Right.
I mean, I could go down this list: Durant, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Karl-Anthony Towns. None of these guys are bad plays. So how do we do it? I have to make the slate small for myself, and I can do that by instead of playing the 10% guy, I'll take the 5% guy in Booker, who I actually feel just as good about as the 10K guys.
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. And big slates, I think you talked about this before too. Big slates, more edge, more skill, right? Like I do terrible at big slates. You crush big slate nights, I do horrible, right? Because you understand more about basketball than I do. And so that's making the slate small is a great thing for everybody here to think about.
Yeah. No, and sometimes I get crushed because I get too stuck in and that's okay. If I was playing 150, I'd be different. Part of what we are doing here at this company is that we are not the 150 max guys. Occasionally, every now and then I'll do a football, maybe once a year. I'll occasionally do a golf one, maybe on a $5 tournament. Sheets did it once and then finished second for the million. But mostly me, Rhodey, and Sheets, the guys in Chan, the guys you listen to, we're successful. We're able to be competitive at the top of this industry in the top 100 in the world, if not high, actually probably a lot higher. But and we're doing it on a limited bankroll. That's what we're trying to help with. That's why maybe you can get more from guys like us than from some of these other sites because there's so much information in this and that, and you want 6% of this guy and 3% of this. We do have some spread out. You're going to have some spread out. I'm going to talk ownership sometimes. I'm going to say you want to have 60% of that guy and that kind of thing. But if you get into like the 7% of 3% of guys, no, we want to have guys we play. We want to tell you how we do it, and hopefully that's helpful. And any other suggestions you guys have, please put in the True DFS support channel because I am open to anything that helps you guys feel better and win. I used to coach DFS players for a long time. I've got 6 guys who formerly won $1 million in one tournament. Some of these guys play like $1,000 a day or $100 a day in some cases. There's a process. There's something to this. So hopefully we're doing it right. And we want to make sure we're doing it, in the way that's most helpful for you. Please hit the like button, guys, if you don't mind, before you get out of here. It always helps us. And if there's any last questions, I don't mind. I have another 2 minutes. And then I've got to go actually build my lineups. I've got the mock ones built, but that's all I've got for right now. And it looks like
quiet news night for sure. Not a lot going on there yet. I'm sure there'll be some stuff going on as the night goes. There always is.
And I will be in Discord, and Rodeo, I'm sure, will be in Discord, and we'll help you update it. We'll tell you everything we're doing and all that stuff, as long as it's long enough before lock. So DFS Chan popping on in, saying hit the like button too. So make sure to hit that like button. We really appreciate it, guys. And it's been a good run for some of us and not for others. Basketball's a frustrating game. It's almost over. We got baseball coming, so it'll be a lot more stress free. We can talk a lot more about game theory and stuff. Basketball gets so confusing because we're getting news constantly, and there's so much. It's just on these kind of slates, you just have a million things that are just going to happen. Here's another thing. Knicks are starting. They are starting Jericho Sims. So I'm going to put Jericho Sims as a guy I think we should play a decent proportion of. Taj
rerun all the projections.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. And, if you do have the SaberSim package through us, guys, please check it out. If you do, you can update it right now with the projections right there. But Jericho Sims is not a must play by any means, but he is definitely in that same conversation and maybe making those Sacramento guys a little bit less interesting. Anyway, guys, we appreciate everything that's happening. I don't think there's a whole lot I can add to the Jericho Sims because we sort of went through what would happen if he plays already anyway. I'm going to play some of him. I think you can play him with Toppin. I don't think you have to play him. I think that one of those guys you probably should be playing. That's where I'm at.
Got Wendell Carter just announced out. I don't think I had much of him or any of them, but maybe a little.
This is when it's great if Sheets is still here. Okay, let me see. That is so Mo Bamba on FanDuel becomes a top play, a top center play. That's one thing. He's bounced out. I didn't get that one through. So I still
Just popped on Basketball Monster here on screen. So
yeah.
It'll hit the Twitter feeds quick enough. Sometimes they're late, sometimes they're early, but they're good because they fit on the screen nicely.
I think that gives pretty good merit to playing Cole Anthony if you're going to play Shea. So I think you want to run back Cole Anthony with Shea potentially now. I think you could include Wagner in that conversation. And I think on FanDuel, you want to get some Bamba. I don't even mind him on DK. Probably a little thin, but I meant Franz Wagner. Mo Wagner, the brother, is a much better play than he's been. And we've been playing him, but not on these kind of slates. So I don't think I'm going to go there. But don't be surprised if Mo Wagner puts up 25 or 30 fantasy points. Just a lot of other guys are going to tonight. So that's where I'm at. All right. I think we had anything else that just popped in. Just the Carter news. I think that's really all the ways that it affects things. I have to go build my stuff. Mark, I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to leave you here for anybody who wants and take a look at that stuff. Is that still okay?
Yeah. I'll stick around for a few minutes and we'll just walk through a little bit of SaberSim for anybody that's got questions. That's not an issue at all.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Well, good luck. Mark, great having you. And thanks again for everything. And guys, I will see you